Big welcome to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. Robyn, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. I've listened to you guys quite a bit, so when I met you at Lakeland, well, I recognised your voices before I recognised your faces.
Well, we'll get to that. We definitely
Yeah.
will, because I had the pleasure and privilege of chatting to you just after you crossed that particular finish line. But more on that later. More on that later. We like to start off our guest slots on the podcast with a bit of info about Robyn. Who's Robyn Cassidy? How did you get into running? What's the story? Over to you.
Um, information about me. So Somerset born and bred and grew up on a farm. And in terms of running, I've always been into running since a kid. Originally, well, it was my mum that dragged me out when I must have been about 11 or 12, and she was on a bit of a health kick. And so in the mornings before school, she would run down the farm lane and back, just to kind of get her fitness in. And she used to take me with her. So that was like my first running memories. And they were pretty keen runners as I was growing up. So it was always part of the family thing to do. And then, yeah, I did a bit cross country and athletics at school, and then it's kind of just always been there in terms of my running. Other things about me, probably I'm a physio, so I work in research actually at the moment, where I've been doing that for the last 5 years. So I've been a physio for about 14 years, but kind of moved into research in the last 5 years. And I work it's a military rehab base near me. Oh, I'm in the Midlands now, although I'm Somerset born and bred. So yeah, I've been doing that for a while. So that's a little bit of information to get you started.
Yeah, well, I'm going to John's champing at the bit. He always is. I can see it in his eyes. He's champing at the bit to come in with a question, but I'm going to beat him to the punch. You said so mum and dad inspired the running bug a little bit by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they were keen runners as I was growing up. And they probably just did the more like 10Ks, half marathons and things like that.
Yeah,
And I just used to go along with them when I was growing up. And then that moved into kind of the cross country and the athletics at school. They used to always take me, and like weekends they'd come along and they'd cheer me along when I could do races. So yeah, it's always been there. There's a lot of ultra runners that kind of get more into it in their like later life, like
hmm
30s and 40s and things. But I've
true.
yeah, I've always been running. I probably
Okay,
had a bit of time off when I was at uni, and just tried out some different sports really. So
yeah,
tried out a bit triathlon, but I'm really rubbish on a bike. Tried out a sport called swim run, which was a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, I did that for a year or so and did a bit of climbing as well. Just basically anything that got me outside. But running's always been my
it's
kind of consistent.
always been there. And in terms
Yeah.
of then from the distance journey, did you do like road halves, road marathons? Was that something that was part of
Um,
your
yeah, so
progression?
I did a few road halves and then did a couple of road marathons. Actually, my only DNF, touch wood, is a
Mhm.
road marathon. That was London Marathon,
Okay.
about 6 or 7 years ago, where actually I ended up in hospital, so that probably wasn't a
Was
great
that a
DNF.
warm year? No, it wasn't the warm year.
Yeah, it was a warm year.
John and I ran that we finished.
Did
John
you
and I.
you finished? Ah, jealous.
John, that was 2018.
Yeah,
Was a
that sounds
warm
about
year,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Did you run that
Ro
year?
Robyn was on the same. This is a recurrent theme. We always find a race that our guests were on the same start line as us. You probably weren't on the same start line, by the way, because we were like we were
Lucky.
starting like at about 11:30
Yeah, it was
with the
it was a
masses.
hot year because
It was.
they sent out an email, I remember, like a few days before the race, and they were like, it's going to be hot, don't go for your PBs, like just take it chilled. And I was like, no, I've been training really hard. I really want to get my PB. Um,
Yep.
and yeah, I got to 21 miles and then just completely passed out. Well, actually, I was running along and I started to feel a bit dizzy, and I thought people in the like runners were like just trying to grab me, and I was like, why are you trying to grab me? And was like pushing them off, and actually what I was doing was actually just falling into the crowd. So it wasn't very pretty.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
All all ended well though.
all
Everything.
and
Yeah.
all ended well, just
Okay.
just overheated,
Cool.
and once I'd kind of like cooled down and yeah, got a little IV drip, I was fine the next day. But lesson learnt, lesson
Yes.
learnt.
Definitely. That is much the case. It was not a year to be doing setting the
No.
heather on fire, as we say.
How did you find it?
Well, John and I were going for a target that year, weren't we, John?
Sub 4.
Sub 4. It was Project Sub 4
Ooh,
for John to get him under
nice.
the 4 hour marker for the first. So I was pacing John for the sub 4 attempt. And we got
Oh,
to about
nice.
we
That
got to
works
Did you
about
get
out
it?
8
first.
miles.
I
We
was going
got
to
to
say
about 8
5
miles.
miles. 5
I was
miles.
about 8 miles. He turned
Yeah.
to me and says, Stevie boy, I think I'm going to hit you out here. We walk. And I'm like, oh no, that's that canned.
Run at the conditions. I've got to officially say as well, this is the longest it's taken me to speak on a Young Hearts Run Free podcast. So
I know, well done.
it's wonderful to have another Cassidy in the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Robyn, you've told us, but for the pleasure of our listeners, please tell us your dad's name.
Oh, my dad's name's John. So yeah, share the same name, John Cassidy.
And your mother's name?
Pip, Philippa.
Philippa.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I also love the fact that you've said twice you're Somerset born and bred, just so there's no mistake. Born and bred
Yeah,
in
I'm proud of
Somerset.
that.
Of course,
Quite
as you
right.
should be, as you should be.
I'm proud of that.
Speaking a wee bit there about marathons and your introduction and the information you've given us, and you said your mum and dad's inspired you. What about athletes? As you were growing up and going through that journey of running yourself, who inspired you to run, whether they're famous or not, and who also, double question, who continues to inspire you?
I think as I was growing up, it was probably like my parents and things like that. And yeah, I had no kind of big running idols who I didn't know, like in the athletics or the cross country scene. I have always been more kind of triggered and inspired by people I know, because obviously you know their personalities, you know their ins and outs of their stories, so that's going to hit you deeper than a photo of someone that you kind of know the superficial things about, but actually you don't know the ins and outs of things. So yeah, it's always kind of been more people close to home. I would say now, kind of yes, definitely since I've moved into kind of the ultra world, as I call it, and you get more and more like sucked into it and absorbed into it. I would say inspiration. Oh, they've got to be my mates. Like I've got quite, especially in the last year or so, a strong group of girlfriends that I've met through various like volunteering and like race events and things like that. And actually, we formed quite a strong little group. And we've just become really, really supportive of each other. And you can definitely like draw inspiration from them and like draw from them their strengths where you know you may struggle in certain areas, you can draw from their strengths. Like I've got a friend, Trish Patterson, she's a running coach and she's a mum, and she's like a guest speaker on another podcast that I won't mention the name,
All right.
on Tea and Trows,
Okay.
and she's just like so motivational and just so super supportive of everyone else before she's supportive of herself, and she'll be the first one to like send you supportive messages pre-race, give you a ring, make sure you're okay, like send you like almost like to the point of stalking messages during the race to make sure that you're doing all right, and like give you a phone call. And the enthusiasm, she's actually out in Oz for a year, but the enthusiasm that comes from like her support, it doesn't matter that she's like the other side of the world, she's still like supportive. And I've got a couple of mates who have actually just done the Dragon's Back. So Zoe Murphy, she came third in the Dragon's Back on Saturday, and she's been building up for that race. And actually, she had a really tricky day 3 and day 4 where she was just really, really sick, like couldn't get any food down. But one thing that I draw from her is that she's got just such a strong head on her shoulders, and it doesn't matter what situation she's in. If she's been like, I'm getting this job done, she's getting that job done. So like it's just like strengths of different people. And there was like another Andrea was running as well, another friend of mine, and again just so headstrong that you can kind of draw from their strengths because you know them and because they're part of your life rather than kind of idols in the distance.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's also,
sorry, I waffled a bit there.
No, that's brilliant. It's also a fantastic segue into our next question, which is about mental strength. Well done, Robyn. Thank you for that. Because ultra running, a lot of that is as much a mental challenge as it is a physical one. You mentioned about your pal having good strength and in the head, and about making, when things get tough, things go to shit. What do you do? How do you pull it back? How does Robyn Cassidy pull it back?
In terms of mental strength, so I'm actually not very good in terms of my mental strength before a race. I find it actually quite difficult, like preparing myself for when I know I've got a big race coming up. I'm not one that kind of like really pushes the races that I'm doing. Like there's a lot of runners that the week before an event, they'll be putting up loads of pictures on social media about the event that they're doing and all their preparation. And I just find that really stressful. So I go quite quiet prior to an event, and I kind of internalize a little bit. And it's something that I do need to work on. And I've got a little bit better at it, but I do get quite stressed pre-race. But then that switches a little bit. Like I guess it's a different type of stress during an event. If things aren't going so well, I feel like I am a little bit stronger, like I'm a little bit more confident in my strength in that domain. When it's actually happening to me right now, and I can just sit and problem solve it, I guess I just try and be as pragmatic as I can, and kind of put the emotion to one side.
Has that changed for you over the years? Has it developed over the years?
The more races you do, the better I've found that I have become, because you can draw from previous experiences. So you can, like, if something's happened in a race, I don't know, you feel sick or something like that, and if that's happened before and you know that you've got through it, it's a lot easier to then push yourself through it again, because you've got that strength of like, I've done this before, I've been here before, I can do it again. But I guess it's going through the scenarios in your head before the actual race, so that when certain things happen that you don't want them to happen, if you've kind of thought through that scenario in your head before the race has started, it's like easier to deal with during the actual race itself. But I think probably the main thing is I just try and be as like pragmatic and like problem solving, like control, like everyone says, control your controllables, don't worry about the other stuff. But saying that, I do get like emotional on races, and there has been checkpoints where I've just bawled my eyes out.
That's emotional's good. John and I love a little cry during a long jog and stuff, and that helps. That's a coping mechanism in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to release that and no care that people are watching you blubbering away. Who cares?
And I guess it's like acknowledging that feeling and being like, yeah, I'm really sad at the moment. Like I'm just going to accept that for a few minutes and then deal with it.
bounce back.
Yeah, well, try to.
But you spoke about, interestingly, about like problem solving. So what kind of adversity have you had to problem solve during a race? And what one did you do well, maybe? Let's say. Have you got an example?
Wait a minute, let me have a think. Probably like for me, like problem solving is more my I guess there's two things that I have is one is nutrition, like, but that happens to absolutely every runner. Like at some point, if you're doing ultra marathons, at some point you will get a race that you don't fuel that well. It will either be that fueling goes wrong and you feel super, super sick. And it's how you deal with that, or you miss your timings with your fueling and then you bonk. And so probably like I've had a few races, well, especially this year, I had I went out to Madeira in March. It was March or April? Anyway, March or April, and went out with a group of friends for a holiday. And there's the Madeira Ultra Trail out there, so it's the 115. So it's 115 kilometers. It's around 7,000 meters in elevation, and they also do like a 80k and a 50k and a 80k and a 40k and a 20k. So there's a group of us that went out, and some of us weren't racing, some of us were doing all the various distances, and we were like, we'll treat it as a holiday and we'll go out. And I went out and I just massively underestimated the race completely. Like the trails chewed me up and spat me out. I got my fueling wrong because I probably wasn't in my head. I was almost treating the race as a bit more of a holiday, and I was kind of more in a holiday mindset than a race kind of focus mindset. So whereas normally when I go into a race, I'm definitely a planner. That probably comes from like my research background. Like everything is planned down to a T, and I have spreadsheets for things. Even if I don't use them, it's just a way for me to process it. But for this Madeira race, I was kind of half on holiday, didn't really think about things. And then actually when I was faced with problems like fueling, I didn't have that pre-plan in my head. And then I struggled a little bit more from it. And also because I was there for a holiday, that like drive of actually wanting to like push myself through that pain wasn't there. And you could just kind of get that, oh, I could just be on a beach right now, feeling, which I never normally get, but I did get it for that one. So yeah, my head wasn't there for that race at all, and my fueling then suffered for it because I didn't plan for it and I didn't kind of deal with the problems as they came up. So yeah, learning lesson. Either it's a race or a holiday. Can't combine the two.
Can I ask a question? Have you done a lot of races abroad? Where I'm going with this is the heat factor, because Madeira is going to be warmer than the UK.
Yeah.
Did that play a part?
It wasn't too bad actually, because it started at midnight. So it might have been the midnight start as well. That's like something that I hadn't done before. So it started midnight, and it actually rained so much during the night, and we were up on the mountain section at that bit at like 2-3 in the morning, and it was like sideways wind and rain. And I don't think a lot of the European runners have kind of dealt with weather that's probably felt a little bit more like Welsh. So there was a lot of cold runners out there. I didn't mind it. I was loving it. But there was a lot of shivering people at the checkpoints. But actually then during the next day, when we got into the daytime, it wasn't too bad. It was overcast, so heat wasn't an issue there. But
that's not an excuse that time.
yeah, I can't use it. Yeah, I can't. Damn it. It would have been a good reason.
I know. 7,000 meters of climb, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, about 7.
Yeah. Which over what's 115, so like 70 miles.
Yeah, so kind of.
It's quite,
I've raced similar sort of profile. So UTS 100k is roughly the same elevation profile to that.
Right.
But Madeira, the climbs are a lot longer. So you're climbing for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you're descending for like a good hour and a half, 2 hours on really steep terrain. And a lot of it was quite hard packed as well, where in like UTS you're climbing, but it's like 45 minutes. You're coming back down. It's not that long, and it's a lot softer, the terrain. So again, all those little factors that meant that I was I don't know, I'm definitely more built for like UK running. I need to work on like this European running stuff, because it's definitely is a lot different to here.
You mentioned UTS. That was last year. You had a big year. Well, to me, it looks like a big year last year. Arc of Attrition in January, UTS in April, and then the Dragon's Back in September.
Yeah.
They're chunky races. Ascending or descending? What's your preference? What are you best at?
There's two different questions for you. It's almost like what's your preference and what you're best at. It could be the opposite.
That's true.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupt.
I prefer ascending. I like going up hills. I quite like, especially when you can get into the rhythm of it. I do it you can just slot into a rhythm, and then you just keep on like trucking up. I do like hills, so that's why a lot of my races have a lot of hills in them. So I like the going up. The going down I am working on. I'm not the best descender, and usually when you listen to like especially female runners that enjoy like the mountain races, descending's usually their strength. But I'm overtaken massively when I go down hills. So I was working on that a lot last year. I entered a few fell races, because they seem to be the best descenders that you can get, and tried to follow a few fell runners down hills. Kind of succeeded.
Like following their line almost.
Yeah, and just trying to like keep that tempo and keep that foot pattern and get that fear out of your head. But
you should go out running with John. John's an expert descender. Hey, John.
Are you?
No, he doesn't like running down hills fast.
Nah, I like going up. I love climbing.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you use poles, Robyn?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
What poles do you use?
I got Leckies. They're so good. They're so good. They're so lightweight.
Yeah, it seems to be. Well, there's a few other poles that are available, but it seems to be the pole of choice, the most popular pole that's out there. And you're right, they are so light. I had a pair of the carbon, had the Harrier Catbell ones, just aluminium they were actually.
Yeah.
And I thought they were light. And then I got a pair of Leckies, and it was just like unbelievable, the difference. And really,
you can't compare it.
Easy to pack them away as well. Do you use poles going down, depending on
going down?
Mm-hmm.
No, I just use them on ascending. I haven't quite got the coordination of how it works when you're going downhill. So yeah, I tend to just tuck them away when it gets to that point. Do you use them going downhill?
Depending on the steepness of the descent.
Yeah.
I may do, just to take a wee bit of pressure off my knee.
Yeah.
But I've yet to perfect it. Let's leave that there.
I've never ran with poles, ever.
You've never ran with poles?
It was only because
Such a game changer.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm saving that up for when I need a boost. I'm like, I've got that in my armory of things that I've still to do that might improve me slightly.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
I think depending on the distance, me personally, depending on the distance you're doing, to use less energy going up. The poles just did that for me. They're brilliant. I love them. They're really good.
Can I ask a question about your love of climbing up hills? So getting into that little sort of comfortable suffer bubble or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Where you can just tend to
I like
say,
that description.
Yeah. This is tough. This is, I'm working hard, but I'm weirdly enjoying it, and I'm weirdly comfortable in it. Do you know what I mean? It's like a little jacket or a coat or something like that. Now I wouldn't do that for an hour and a half or 2 hours for 45 minutes, but I know what you mean. I can relate to it, and it's like, okay, there's a 15-minute climb coming up. It's like, okay, that's 15 minutes. That's 3 songs on my playlist or whatever else, and I'm just going to flip my brain into a different place and stuff. But was that something that you were naturally good at, or did you have to work on that element of like in your ascending skills? Do you do reps? Do you do what does training look like?
I think I've had always a bit of hills in my legs. Like, well, growing up in Somerset, it's not mountainous, but it's definitely not flat. There's a lot of like undulating terrain. And I grew up like doing cross country, and trail running was my main kind of sport rather than road running. So I've definitely got a background of that undulating terrain in my legs, but maybe not like the steep hills. So when I was building up, so kind of it's changed as my training has progressed. So with the Arc was my first kind of big ultra marathon to do. So like my first 100-miler and things like that. And the terrain there, it was hilly, but it was very short and sharp, snappy hills on the coast. So I didn't particularly focus on hills for that race. Because it was my first 100-miler, I just focused on like building up the volume, and that was like enough for my body. I didn't need to add in any other things to the mix than just getting the volume in. And then my races after that was UTS and Dragon's Back, which obviously the main feature of those races is the hills. So that's when kind of my body was a little bit more used to the volume by that point. So I could kind of add another thing into the recipe.
Yep.
And so, yeah, started on doing basically loads of recce weekends, just getting out on that terrain and just working, like just training in that terrain and getting used to it. Again, for UTS, I added in kind of hills at the weekends, and then I could probably tolerate like one quality session during the week. But again, it's that slow process of what's your total volume or your total training load that your body can cope with. And at that point, it was just that one session, and then that was enough. Like I couldn't do anything else. So
so you're basically recovering and then building up to the next big session.
Yeah. So I'd like have a hill, like a weekend in the hills.
Yep.
And then I'd probably be able to sneak one session in during the week, maybe some weeks not. And then I'd be back out in the hills at the weekend. And then that was enough. And then I found with Dragon's Back, again, because I was like another 3-4 months down the line, I could add again another thing into the recipe, and I could tolerate those like 2 sessions during the week. And that's when I probably really started working on like a focused hill session in the week and then the hills at the weekend.
Okay.
And then it's kind of evolved from there, but it's been a slow process. But I try and do like a hill session during the week and then something else, another
like a
kind of
structured
session.
hill session.
Yeah, and then a structured hill session during the week, and then just get out in the hills as I can at weekends because it's fun.
Give me a structured hill session before a tempo session any day of the week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, speed, hills. I'll go hills.
Oh, so really?
Comfort bubble in the hills, like I just spoke about. You can just kind of lose yourself, like go in a meditative state. I don't know what it is. But what in terms then, so Dragon's Back, now we want to leave plenty of time to speak about the headline act, which was happened this summer. Okay, so that's I'm not wanting to skirt over the Dragon's Back because that's epic and probably deserves an episode all on its own, John. Okay, but in terms of Lakeland 100, when did you decide on that being an A race for 2025? When was it on your sort of to-do list as such?
Well, the ballot comes out during Dragon's Back.
Yes.
So I signed up. I think I signed up into the ballot on. I think it was the day before I went up to Conway Castle.
Okay.
And then I think it was day 2. I was in the tent, and so I just finished day 2, and who was in there? Zoe Murphy, who she ran Lakeland 100, and Gary Thwaites as well. We
Yep.
were all in the marquee, like paying for our Lakeland entry.
Who's
So
got a signal?
yeah,
Who's
got
got
onto
a
the
signal? Well done
yeah.
getting a signal, I'm saying.
Yeah, trying to find the signal spot so we can get our payment in.
Okay.
So, and for me, Lakeland, so the year before, I watched a couple of friends. I went up there for the weekend. I had a couple of mates that ran the Lakeland 50, and it was their first 50 miler. And I just went up and just was cheer squad for the weekend. So ran out onto the route, cheered them up, going up over, what is it? It's after the pass after Howtown, that one.
Yeah.
Tuesdale.
No, Gatescar.
Yeah, that's it. So I ran up to
Tuesdale.
there.
Aye, sorry, John's right. I'm wrong.
Yeah, just cheered them over the pass, and then went down to Ambleside and saw like the atmosphere there, and then went back to the Coniston and saw the atmosphere there. And you can't not sign up for the race after you've like supported some mates through it. It like the atmosphere is insane. It's
Was
so
that your
good.
was that your first experience of the atmosphere?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah.
Like I've heard, like you hear about it because it's a it's a well-known race, but I think once you've actually kind of experienced it on the side, on like the support, like the cheer squad side,
Yep.
it kind of sucks you in. So I knew that I'd be signing up for it for next year.
Okay.
Was it all? It sounds like last year though. You built up ARC UTS falls in perfectly to go for Dragon's Back.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on like Dragon's Back in comparison to the lakes, or was that two separate things? Like
so like as a lead in. Yeah, well, to be fair, my race calendar this year probably hasn't been that clever in terms of picking races to then feed into the next race
Thought you were a good planner. Thought you were a good planner.
Yeah, I know. I got it wrong this year. I got it wrong. There was a lot. I ended up booking about two or three other races, which I've then cancelled. Just because I was getting like race FOMO with like everything. So I was just like signing up for everything and then realizing that I can't do everything. So this year I ended up doing some fell races earlier in the year, and then Madeira and then Lakeland, which are quite they're very different races.
I want to ask this when Stephen, you were talking about your training. Do you have a coach, Robyn?
No, I don't. I've been self-coached since I started ultra running. I'm again going into that whole planning thing. I do really enjoy reading about different coaching approaches, and there's so much information out there that you can kind of read into different styles and different formats, and then I kind of liked experimenting that on myself and seeing what worked and what didn't work. It's probably not the most efficient way to do it, but it's something that I've enjoyed. But I have thought recently, kind of now I've got to I've kind of tested out a few things with myself over the last like year or so, whether it's worth getting like an external advisor to kind of like guide the realm.
Advisor.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd call it. A demi coach. Yeah, because I like writing my own plans, but and I like sitting down and planning my weeks and doing all of that bit. But I just think having someone like a sounding board just to be like,
just
to
do you have that with your pals though? You do that with your pals?
Yeah, to a certain, definitely to quite. Yeah, we're always talking about running and different running coaches and like, I don't know, training plans and what this person's doing compared to this person.
There'll be people's ears perking up just now. I'm a demi coach. No, I'm not really. John is.
I'm an external advisor. I can give Robyn a call.
Advisor.
Yeah, no, but it's
I like
interesting.
that one.
I can't believe it. Yeah. I need to think of a different word for it.
It's okay.
But
I think external advisor works.
people know what you mean. It's also fantastic that it's like shoes or nutrition. You find out what works for you, don't you? You know, and that's where you are, and it's
Yeah.
stood you in pretty good stead thus far.
Yeah.
Can we speak about Lakeland 100? Can we rock up at the main event, Stephen?
Oh, aye. I'm always keen to get back to Coniston.
Yeah. So let's go for mid-July. It's not quite race week yet, but we're in race month. How had your training been up until mid-July, and how were you feeling going into the event, Robyn?
So in terms of training had been really good. I can't complain about any of my training going up into Lakeland. I've been lucky, touch wood, haven't had any big injuries. So in terms of my consistency, I've been super consistent during like over the year. And like I do have that base structure that is typical for every ultra runner of doing like a back-to-back or a long run at the weekend and then two decent sessions in the week and then a load of base miles. So I've kind of been following that structure or that base structure for quite a while. And like numbers, like when I look back at different like older training sessions, numbers were going in the right direction. They were definitely getting better. So like I felt pretty good in terms of my training. And then, and like I said before, it doesn't matter what my training's been. It could be the most perfect training plan, but I will stress out a couple of weeks before the event. So yeah, that couple of weeks, my head isn't great. So I tend to try and not like look into the race that much, not really look at who else is running and all of that sort of stuff. And I just try and focus on what I need to do.
Perfect. Yeah, control the controllables.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like I could have the most perfect training plan, and if you ask me 2 weeks before the event, I'll be like, oh, it's rubbish.
Yeah. 5:55 on the Friday night. How are you feeling?
I'm all right by then. Like, because you can't like it's go time.
Yeah. Was it your let's let the cat out of the bag. Robyn won the Lakeland 100 this year, first lady finisher. Was it your intention going into the race to win?
I had a plan of a time in mind, and that was basically based off of my arc of attrition time because it had been a year and a half since arc of attrition, and that was my first 100 miler, and I wanted to prove to myself that I'd progressed since then. So the races are obviously they're different, but I wanted to see that there was some like progression. So I had kind of a time and how I wanted to feel on the race in mind. And then if that sat in a certain position, it did. If it didn't, but I got to the finish line and I was like, that was the best that I could have run, then it doesn't, like, whatever position is irrelevant.
Okay, sure.
But I was at the start line with Lucy Gossage. And yeah, she's so much fun. You can't be stressed when you're around Lucy at a start line. She's got so much energy. She was like bouncing around. So yeah, that kind of helped with my nerves.
Brilliant. And I know that they are different courses, but you finished 40 minutes faster at the Lakes than you did Arc of Attrition.
Yeah.
So did that fit in with your goal that you were thinking about?
Yeah, it did. It was better. I think so with Lakeland, I'm super, super pleased with the position, like massively pleased with the position. Absolutely love the event itself. Love the race, love the volunteers, love the route. In terms of my own running, I was really, really happy with how I ran up to about Howtown. And then I do feel, for me, my like wheels fell off a bit. And that second half of the race, for me, I don't think I ran the best that I could have ran. And so that, although I've crossed the finish line, I was super happy with where I came and that my friends and family were there. And I don't want to seem unappreciative, but and blah, 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 it has annoyed me, or it has like gritted, like got under my skin a little bit that I could have done this better. I could have done that better. Why didn't I do that? And
is there a wee itch you've been scratched here, Robyn?
what, to go back?
Yeah.
I would like to go back. Probably not next year, but I would like to go back because that second half, I didn't run how I wanted to run that second half. Like I've recce'd it, and I like knew how I wanted to feel and work, like run different sections, and I didn't do what I want. I didn't perform how I wanted to perform on that bit.
I love this. Love it. Finishing first, but still learning. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, myself included, think the person that finishes first, they've nailed it. But they're not. Stephen, sorry, you're going to come in.
No, I was just going to ask, if it's all right to ask this question, did you get your goal time despite your place? Did you get what your goal aspiration was, time-wise?
So I wanted around the 23-hour mark, so I did get that. But when I got to kind of halfway, I was like, if I maintain this current pacing, I'll get below that.
Got you.
But I did that classic, like I kept at a pace, and then I like that just dropped off for the second half. I wasn't consistent across the race, and that's what I wanted more, was to be consistent across the race rather than race 70% really well and then drag yourself to the line the last 30%. That's not good racing.
We spoke about...
sorry.
No.
Sorry.
We spoke about...
I'm thinking maybe 50%. Right, is good going for me.
And we spoke earlier on about problem solving and doing things as you're running. What would you do different if you want to share that? And in that first part, what would you do different that could then allow you to be consistent in the second part?
Fueling was a big one.
Okay.
So I had a plan with gels, and I kind of kept to that for that first half, and then I kind of missed a few. Just you get kind of absorbed into the race, and then before you know it, an hour's gone past and you haven't eaten anything. So I did that a couple of times, which they're just silly errors. You should like. They're easily avoidable errors, and I did that a few times. And then like my stomach wasn't great to tolerate food, and actually I got really, really hungry, which I wasn't expecting because I didn't really have that in the Arc. I was mainly on gels on the Arc, plus a couple of mouthfuls of noodles. But I got to which one is it? It's Mardale. And I was super, super hungry, but then couldn't, as soon as I'd like try and eat a sandwich, that wasn't going down. So I was like this mix of like really hungry, but not able to eat. So yeah, something went off with the fueling.
Mardale's a good place to get hungry. Mardale's a good place to get hungry because they've got a good selection of food there. But
there's some great sandwiches.
Yeah, but there's that thing. So you mentioned about nutrition and gels. Were you carrying food with you, or was it just gels that you were carrying?
So I had precision hydration gels, and actually what I've started doing, which I really, really like, is Precision Hydration do like a big flow gel packet, which is like 10 gels in one. And so what I've been doing is just putting the whole of that in a soft flask on my bag, so it's right there. So I'll have one of water or electrolytes or something like that, 500 ml of water or electrolytes, and then the other one on my other shoulder is my gel in a soft flask, and then I just have the other water in my belt. And then so
Ah.
it's just, it reduces the amount of swapping and faffing because your gel's right there. You don't need to open any packets. And then you only need to do one swap of the soft flask when you finish that bottle to get onto the other bottle. And it's just less playing with kit.
Yeah, I love that idea because I use the little soft flask that I'll decant the flow gel into.
Yeah.
And I think it holds 3 gels,
Yeah.
the mini soft flask. But you putting that in a 500 ml soft flask and filling it with gel, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you then, and this is a question that you maybe don't answer, know that was a gel that I just
Oh,
consumed? Do you know what I mean? Is there no
you
science to
you
that?
get a packet of gel
Ah,
and you just practice working out how many
okay.
mouthfuls that is, and then you
Yes,
just do the same mouthfuls for your flow gel. Yeah, 3
yeah,
mouthfuls.
yes. Okay.
Nobody's ever mentioned this before.
Yeah,
This is
it's
brilliant.
This
it's
is you. We've
so
had
good.
people mixing gels with
Mm,
electrolyte. So I think it was Renee McGregor. That was one of her tips for us. Putting almost using gels to top up your actual electrolytes. So just squeezing a couple of gels in, and
Oh, okay.
you're almost sneakily getting your gels in
Yeah,
without
that's a good
in
idea. I like
without
that.
without in your head really thinking, oh, I have to take a gel. God.
Yeah. Well, it
But
also helps because you must have this when you have your 3 gels in a bottle. If
mhm,
you're having that point where your stomach isn't great, the
yep,
idea of getting a whole gel down sometimes is too much. But
yes,
what you can do is just slowly sip away at it for like half an hour, and then
yes.
you would have got a gel in, but you can just do
oh,
it a lot slower.
This is
game
we like our
changer.
golden nuggets on the
Mm,
podcast, Robyn, and I think there'll be a lot of people going, hmm. And pH
Yeah.
hydration is also the best substance to put in that 500 ml soft flask at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we know.
Yeah. Well, it's so neutral. So if you're going to have 10 gels in one bottle, you don't want a strong flavour.
was
Um,
that? Did
Uh,
that see you
it
through
is
the whole
neutral.
100 miles?
so I had, so that's 10 gels. So for me, that's 5 hours. So I had one of
Okay.
those for the first half, and then I had one in my drop bag.
So
And then
then
I
you
had
changed it,
some,
right? Okay, yeah.
yeah, so I had another full soft flask of gel. So I just did a swap 1 for 1. Um,
Perfect.
and then I had a couple of different gels in my pocket
Mhm.
just for a change of flavour and a couple of chews. But I always think that I can tolerate chews and solid food because when I'm training, I can eat anything. Like I can sit and have like stop for a coffee and a sandwich and then carry on running and I'm absolutely fine. But as soon as it comes to races, I really struggle with anything like
Mm.
solid. So I had some
Yeah,
chews, but I got maybe one down.
Did you finish that second flask of gels? By the time you go
Yeah.
back to Coniston, you'd finished it. Did you have enough?
So I had those 2 soft flasks and then a few other gels and then picked bits at checkpoints, a load of
Okay.
Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Precision Hydration did a case study. One of the reasons that I kind of started using their products is that they do case studies on athletes. You've probably seen them.
yeah. Robbie
Yeah, they
Britton
do.
introduced us to them.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm?
Yeah, Robbie Britton. He
Oh,
introduced us because I think he done one himself. I'm pretty sure, John, am I
Yeah, he
memory
did,
serving
yeah.
me correctly?
yeah.
Yeah, and it really made us go and look at their website and then how you can actually
The
do one
stats are in,
yourself for
yeah.
your own.
Yeah,
You know?
they're so good. So when I was looking to race Dragon's Back, I started looking at all the case studies and I realized that they didn't have any women doing multi-stage races at that time. So I contacted them and I said, I'm doing this race. I really like your products. I'd be happy to be a case study person because one, it helps me, but also then you've got one on your website if other people are doing that in the future.
Mhm.
So they did a case study on me for Dragon's Back, which was so interesting because like you could just
Correlate.
correlate, thank you. You could correlate the days where I didn't run as well. I was probably 5 to 10 grams of carb an hour less than the days that I ran where I had loads of energy. And it was so interesting. And you don't know if that was the actual cause, but
Yeah.
that slight drop off in carb could have then been one of the factors that I didn't feel that good that day, because I wasn't counting on the days what I was eating. I was just eating everything and recording it all and then sent it to them. So they did that case study on me for that, and they've done one for Madeira and also for Lakeland. And Lakeland, I was quite under, so something to work on.
No, thank you for that, sharing that insight. And well, it's good to know that you've got an action plan almost, haven't you, for when you go back?
Yeah, gonna try.
I honestly love this, because people listening in they'll be celebrating the fact that the people at the sharp end of the races were always learning. There's always learning to be taken from whatever event you do, and it's about your aim. You said, Robyn, was to be running consistently across that 105 miles, to be doing that. And what you've just been describing with the research sort of stuff is things that you can tap into to help make that difference. I mean, that I always think back to the British cycling team, and they spoke about marginal gains, but these are massive gains that can be made by having that information available. Love it.
Yeah.
Love a spreadsheet. Love a spreadsheet.
They're good.
We should say
a spreadsheet. You know, you used to write loads of shit down on the back of your wrist. You know, just splits or tips. You know, you need that one. Actually, it's your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You better get a pair of glasses that do that, like they Google Lens things that you can just see it in front of you.
Ah, yeah, I'll be catching Robyn in a pair of them in a race pretty soon.
I'm actually really sad. I do write down like timings or splits or something like that. So for Dragon's Back, I wrote down like little cards. They were probably the size of like smaller than the palm of my hand, and they just had like the key timings on. But I will be at work like laminating it the week before, cutting it out so it like fits in my pockets. Yeah, so I'm one of those.
Yeah. Another female 100 finisher this year, Julie McGill, is also a laminator. She does that too.
You gotta love a laminator.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I fetched out of my mum's cupboard. Laminator. Dust it off.
Yeah.
Your finish time, Robyn, was 23 hours, 2 minutes and 47 seconds. I have a burning desire to ask if that 2 minutes and 47 seconds bothers you being over. I don't mean to offend you. I'm not wanting to offend you, but does it bother you?
A little bit, because I like round numbers.
Yeah.
It would have been really nice to have got a little bit quicker. And I also think it probably wouldn't bother me if I'd have crossed that finish line and been like, I gave everything that I could have gave on that race, and I ran the best that I can run at the moment. If I'd came and then that would have been my time, I would have been more than happy, and I probably wouldn't have looked back at it. But I think because I crossed the finish line and straight away was like, I wasn't happy with this, I wasn't happy with this. I was like already picking things apart in my head.
Yeah.
That time, of course, it grates a little bit, but overall, I'm still pleased with what happened, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Did you write all these things down that you could do?
Yeah.
Journal. I love a journal as well.
Yeah.
Stuff.
And we said at the start, you know, I was, like I said, really honoured to greet you over the finish line, because I was there doing some work for the race organisers and getting to chat to you, and you did look like like I say, you hid it well if you were really toiling, because you looked super fresh and you looked elated to have taken the win, which is natural. And then you're getting marched into that tent and announced as the winner and stuff like that. It's adrenaline can surely then see you through for 5 minutes at least. And you were certainly gracious enough to give me a couple of minutes to chat to you. So thank you so much for that. It was a treat to get to speak to you at that particular moment. Would you say that's your finest hour so far with your running, that win at Lakeland?
Oh, in terms of like my
achievement.
Own achievement. It's up there for sure.
Okay.
Like Lakeland is iconic, and the feeling of running through Coniston at the end is amazing. Going into the marquee, like it's such a like the whole weekend is so special. So yeah, in terms of achievements, it's of course it's up there, but I think a little bit tainted by just my own reasons, but
Yeah.
not the race's reasons at all. So yeah, I am proud of it because of the race that it is. And I think other races that I've done, probably like I've had races where like smaller races, like I did, for example, I did Pendle Hill Fell race last year, which is it's a really small fell race up on Pendle Hill, and it's called Tour of Pendle. And I entered that after Dragon's Back. It was in November, I think it's October, November time, and it's a great fell race. It's about 27k, and it goes up and down Pendle Hill, just literally tours around it, and you just go up and down and up and down and up and down. And the reason I entered it was because I really wanted to work on my downhill, and that the downhill on those they're short, but they're steep. And I was like, that's a nice kind of entry fell, well, hard, but not Lake District hard fell racing, where I could kind of start working on my downhill. And I did that race and I came first. But I also, when I was doing the downhill, I was working really, really hard and actually maintaining my position during that race.
Okay.
And I crossed the finish line of that. And I honestly, I couldn't have been prouder of myself. I was so, so proud because I'd like set my target of I want to work on my downhill and I don't want to be overtaken on downhill. And I managed to do that during that event. So it doesn't need to be
Brilliant.
it doesn't need to be the big
No, it
race.
sounds like a bit of a breakthrough moment, the way you're describing it in terms of that thing that you've been working on, and it kind of went clicked, and that is that personal endeavour and goal comes across loud and clear. And you're being super critical of your Lakeland performance as well.
Oh no, yeah.
Personally,
But it's, I think when you're talking about that Pendle Hill race, it's the training you put in and executing it and it working. That's a massive celebration.
Yeah.
Massive celebration. So well done on that one, Robyn. And also, we shouldn't just bypass the fact that you finished First Lady in the Dragon's Back as well, which is a 6-stage race. So, there's a lot of highlights there, isn't there?
It is.
So,
Dragon's Back, there's a bit of mixing your day job and your hobby with the Dragon's Back going on in terms of research you mentioned to us.
Yeah. So I originally was originally introduced into Dragon's Back when I worked on the medical team 2 years ago. And since then I've worked with the ARIA medical team on some of their other events. So Great Lakeland 3-day and also the Northern Traverse as well. And so when I've been working with a medical team, like some of the things that we've been looking at is kind of what are the injuries that we see coming through in terms of your physio injuries. So your hips, your knees, your ankles, your shins, kind of what are the patterns that are coming through? And we were kind of trying to work out what's the reasoning that we're seeing some of these injuries in some events and not so much in other events. But also for the big thing for our for that medical team is that we see the runners for that event. So we'll see them for Dragon's Back, we'll see them for the 6 days. But then we don't know what happens once they leave on that 6th day. And actually, is that an injury that is something that bothers them for a week or two and then it goes away? Or are these injuries that are really actually problematic and need quite a lot of treatment afterwards and can quite have a higher impact onto their race recovery? And that's stuff that we don't know at the moment because we don't follow up the patients. So it was kind of talked about during some of these events. And because of my links with research and also with some of the unis through my work, I approached one of the health and sports science departments at University of Derby and said, can we run this really small project, but I just think it will be quite useful. So what we've done this year at Dragon's Back is the medical team and University of Derby have kind of just set up a really small kind of questionnaire study where we're just asking the runners before they do the event, kind of what's their injury history, what's their training look like coming up to the event, and like what's their race experience, how long have they been running. And then we're tracking those people that answer the questionnaire to see if they get injured, and then what injuries are they getting and what are the common ones that we are seeing. And then what we're aiming to do, and this is if they answer the questionnaires once the race is over, which is the harder bit, is kind of what happens afterwards. So like how long does it take them to recover, and how much treatment do they need afterwards. And it would just be really super useful information just to then start telling future runners, these are the common injuries we're seeing. These are the ones that have the highest impact in terms of, like, if you get this injury, it's going to take you out of running for quite a while. Or if you get this injury, don't worry about it too much, it will settle down. But we can start focusing on the problematic injuries and the common ones, and then start looking at like how can we prevent them happening, because like as you guys know, ultra running's growing massively, and it's not just this elite group of runners that have been running for 15-20 years. It's people that have kind of got less than 1 year running experience, or 1 to 2 years running experience, and which they are slightly higher risk of injury. So if we can prevent that as much as possible, then yeah, people can run. Anyway, sorry, that's one of the projects that we're hoping to run this year.
Don't apologise.
Yeah,
because we want you to come back and talk about all the survey questionnaires that have been answered. Come back with the feedback and the
results. The results are in.
Can I also ask, let's look at the finish list, because Jo Meek was a previous guest on the Young Hearts Run Free podcast after she won the Highland Flying. She was First Lady at Dragon's Back.
Yeah, she was.
Is that your pal Zoe Murphy that finished third?
Yes, yeah. Zoe finished third.
Yeah, and we should give a shout out to number 2, Elsa Morgan, finished second as well. So fantastic. And let's give them the men's as well. Well, why don't we? Gabe Joyce, American, finished in third place. Simon Roberts, a Welshman, finished in second, and another American guy, Max King, finished in first. So well done to all them. It's just literally finished, isn't it? Just this week.
Yeah. So I went down there on the Saturday to cheer them in, and then go to the castle as well. So I was at the castle on Saturday.
So
it's so great, that finish line.
So for those people who are listening in, get your survey completed, get your questionnaire done. When it comes in, Robyn's waiting patiently to start analysing the data.
Yeah, so Robyn insists. Yeah. Don't let Robyn down, guys.
But bringing it back to Robyn running, what do you wear on your feet? What's your choice of shoe?
So I wear Scarpa shoes, and I'm sponsored by Scarpa as well. So for Lakeland, I wore the Spin Infinities. They're a great shoe, actually. They're super, super comfy, really good for that like longer distance stuff. So for more that like 100k, 100 miles kind of terrain or distance. And then the other pair of shoes that I use of theirs a lot with my training is the Spin Ultra. And that's my like day-to-day shoe. It's got a little bit more grip on it. The lug's a little bit deeper, and it's a little bit lighter, or it feels lighter on my foot anyway. So, but they're my like go-to day-to-day shoe. And then I wear the Infinities if it is a little bit longer, because it feels like it's got a little bit more padding. But socks. They're a good shoe.
Can we talk about socks?
Socks?
Socks do you wear?
Oh God, whichever ones I find in the cupboard, which are
That's fine.
clean.
That's fine. That's okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't really. I've got like loads of different pairs of socks, and it's just whatever's doesn't have a hole in it.
Socks with toes or just no
Oh
socks?
no, I've tried the toe socks a couple of times, and one, they're really expensive. And um, I I've done this like 3 times now, where I've seen like a few people wearing the toe socks, and I'm like, oh, they've got to be really good. So I'll buy a pair, I'll put them on, I'll hate them, and then I'll like give them to a mate or something like that. And then like 6 months later, I'll see a few more people running in gin or toe socks, and then I'll do the same thing again. I'll be like, oh, I'll try them again. Maybe it wasn't quite right the first time,
Yeah.
and then buy them and then not like them and sell them
Yeah,
on.
maybe it was that pair that just weren't right. So
Yeah.
another pair.
Yeah.
Waterproof socks or not?
Yeah. So in the winter, waterproof socks for sure. So I had in this for the arc for the last bit, I put a pair of waterproof socks on. I put on what are they sealskin ones, which I don't actually think when I bought them, I don't think they were actually running waterproof socks, so they were really heavy. They were like quite big and thick, but they were nicely padded, which was probably quite appreciated at that time. But I'm gonna invest in a pair of deck shells because everyone seems to be talking about those. I haven't tried them yet,
Yeah.
but
And final bit on feet. Like I'm a bit obsessed with feet. But do you do anything like all the time? Moisturize feet, and on before a race, we've had people talk about using pseudo cream, Vaseline. You get foot stuff called trench. Do you do
yeah.
anything that way? What do you use?
Oh, it's a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so well, there's the whole like, do you try and get your feet hard or do you try and keep your feet soft? And like again, it's 50-50, whatever camp you're in. And then like the foot stuff that I use depends whether it's a hot dry condition or whether it's a cold wet. Because I
Yep.
think hot dry you want to
Yeah.
like almost like a talc or something like that. Seems to be what people go for a little bit more. But then cold and wet, you want like something a bit more lubricating or like a trench foot or something like that. I've gone through so many different tubs of stuff and I still haven't worked out what I like. And there's a really good book actually. Have you read Fixing Your Feet?
Oh, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good.
I'm going to buy another book.
Yeah, but I've been so when I was working like again Dragon's Back, but also Northern Traverse was quite a good one for it. I was that bit of a like the weirdo in the med team that if someone had good feet, I was like straight over and I was like, what do you do for your foot care? Like I need to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but everyone did something different.
Your feet in July in the lakes, how were they?
Oh, they were fine actually. Absolutely
Yeah.
fine. Not a problem.
Cool.
Yeah. I think I just used a bit of a tiny bit of trench foot and then this like German foot cream thing that seems to be quite lubricating. It was on Amazon. It was £8.
German.
Now we want to know.
Yeah, I'll send you the link of it because someone on the spine told me, one of the safety team members. So I worked the safety team on the spine in January, and one of the safety team guys told me about this foot cream. So I bought some after that, and actually I've been using that loads in my training runs, and I haven't had any problems. And then I just use a bit of trench foot on like that like central crease on the ball of your foot.
Yeah.
Just to try not to get that like too waterlogged.
I
So
love
yeah,
the detail
I don't know,
of
everyone
this.
does
I
something
love
different.
it.
John's like, I'm away to Google German foot cream. It's like, what's
£8
this
on Amazon.
mystery portion?
I'll be filtering it. Oh, I'll be filtering Amazon tonight.
Yeah.
German.
Can I just say, Scarpa, your sponsors, it would be amiss of me not to mention Carmen de Grandis, who is a Scarpa athlete. I don't know if you know Carmen.
Carmine, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so he ran my first ever ultra was in Jedburgh and he also ran it at the time, and I bumped in at the time, and I've been friends with him on social media ever since. But he plays the accordion like out on ultras and stuff at like the top of summits and stuff, and he's just a
Honestly,
character. So
he
yeah,
has a heart of gold.
yeah,
He
you can
is the
tell.
most lovely person. So actually, I've got a short story about him. He was doing so he set himself the challenge earlier this year to do the three peaks, and what he did was got the train up to like near Ben Nevis, and then Scarfell, and then Snowdon, and then he went on his bike to the base, and then carried his accordion up to the top, and then played on the top, and then went to the next one and the next one. And he'd had a rough time because the weather was really, really bad. And he was cycling into Llanberis for his last summit. And I happened to be in Snowdonia that time anyway. And so I saw on his tracker that he was coming in. So I met him in Llanberis and just gave him a little like cheer, and was with him when he was like switching his stuff over to get into his walking kit to go up the hill. And as he was switching his stuff over, he just pulled out this top, and it was a really good like mid layer, like it was almost like a wetsuit material as like a winter mid layer. And I looked at it and I just like off the cuff just was like, oh, that looks really good. That's something that would be like really interesting to use in like the spine or something like that. And didn't think anything of it. And then he kind of sorted out his stuff. I cheered him off, and then he went up the hill, and then we saw him when he came back down again. But anyway, a week later in the post arrives that mid layer, because he wanted to say thank you for just like giving him a little cheer. Like that was just so unnecessary, and just it was so lovely of him just to like clock that even when he was in like quite a
Really was.
like
A lovely
Yeah.
act of kindness.
yeah, really
Can I ask-
lovely.
I'm intrigued. Is it a mini accordion or a full-size accordion?
It's full size.
Jeez, oh.
It's well, I assume it's full size. I don't, my accordion knowledge isn't very
Yeah.
good, but it's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got
Fair
a
play.
like a pack for it that like a backpack for it that he takes up. It's amazing. It is
We were-
amazing.
We were talking recently with James Anderson at Safety First. He was one of the guys that stopped to help a lady that came into trouble in the lakes, gave up his own race. And during that episode, we were talking about essential kit. And then here's this guy got his essential kit and an accordion, which is quite
Yeah.
brilliant. Quite brilliant. I
Yeah.
love that.
Love it. Yeah, tell him I was asking for him if you possibly can, because I follow him on social, and I remember him doing that challenge and things like that, but I've never spoken to him for years. But there's always just that, that connection, especially with your first ultra marathon. You meet people for the first time and you're like, wow, what is this world that I'm away to get into? And forever, it's kind of everlasting, just that connection. So yeah. And I noticed that he was Scarpa as well, ambassador or athlete, whatever. So
Yeah.
brilliant. Love that story. Thank you. Oof.
Somebody taking on the Lakeland 100 for the first time. The ballot's just finished. People have been getting emails. 6,000 entrants this year.
Yeah, I
for
heard.
next year's race.
He says,
Somebody who's got in and they're now terrified, excited, all that stuff at the same time. What advice would you give somebody, Robyn, doing the 100 for the first time?
I would say probably with my physio hat on. Just you've got what, 10 months now? Just build up that mileage slowly. If it's their first one, just like start chipping away at that volume earlier rather than later, because it, in terms of like body adaptations, if you're looking at like you don't want to injure yourself during that race and you want to have the best race possible, you need to start working kind of on like your tendon strength and your bone density and your muscular strength like a long time before. It's not just building up your heart and your lungs and your cardiovascular strength. It's getting your scaffolding ready for it as well, and that scaffolding development takes a little bit longer. So start chipping away at it now, and don't think about it as a 3-month program just to get your breathing rate right for the event.
Great advice. I hope nobody's listening to this in June next year and
I know, or just have a really good time on the race.
treat it as a holiday.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Scaffolding development. I like that. I like.
I love
I
it.
like that.
There's so many golden nuggets tonight. It's
It is. It's
absolutely
been awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah, I like that one. Thank you, Robyn. Oh man, how do we get on with our question set, John? I've not
Well,
actually given it any looking. I've just got to
there's been
check
so
on it
many.
now.
There's been so many golden nuggets, but one of the things I want to know,
Uh-huh.
favorite piece of running kit, Robyn. What's one of the things that you always have with you? That go-to thing, without even thinking about it. That's coming.
I don't know.
That's okay. That's
Oh,
okay.
probably my watch, a Garmin
That's cool.
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What watch is it?
Oh, I've got a Garmin. It's Garmin watch. I've always had Garmin. And yeah, super useful. Couldn't do without. I've got I invested a little bit of money and got invested in the one with the bigger battery life, but it does come with like a massive watch face on
Mhm.
it. So on my tiny wrist, it does look ridiculous. But I never take it off. I mean, there's photos of me at friends' weddings, and I've still got my Garmin watch on, and I'm wearing a dress. So
Have you changed the strap colour to match the dress?
no, I should.
That's
Can I
a non-negotiable.
can I ask then? Extra battery life. Did that last you the 100?
Yeah.
Wow,
Is
brilliant.
that the solar?
Easily.
What is that, a Phoenix?
Yeah, it's a Phoenix. It's the Phoenix 7,
Cool.
the big one.
Yeah,
It's
brilliant.
worth
Okay.
getting. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, I also have skinny wrists, by the way. But maybe not as skinny as you.
No,
But
that looks normal. This one just like
it does
it's
look
like
chunky.
massive.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah.
hey
But people will
Gets
see
me.
you at weddings and stuff and go, oh, she's a runner.
I know.
Yeah.
It is
I wear
something
it with
that,
pride, to be honest.
yeah, you do that. I do that like at work, I say professionally. Do you know, and you're almost like, you know, I look at somebody in like Garmin or I'll speak to them later on
Yeah.
about running, do you know, stuff work.
It's like
That's
you're
that
part of the club.
Stephen and I were
the
at
sign.
a concert, another chance to plug Beluga Lagoon. We went to see
Yes.
a band called Beluga Lagoon this year in Glasgow, and we're in a wee bar next door having some tea. And people that we've met through running, we never knew before this podcast. We
Mm-hmm.
met them for a bite to eat before we went to the concert. And the amount of money that must have been there in the watches that had been paid for watches could have probably bought that establishment, I think. Everybody had a Garmin watch on.
Yeah.
This cheap sport of ours.
We're
I
all dressed.
know.
We're all
They're
dressed
like,
like
all you
tramps,
need is a
but they've
pair
got
of
a good
shoes.
watch.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. The reason I run is because it's so simple.
Okay, Stephen, 2 questions
Yes.
to go.
2 questions. First of the last 2 questions, Robyn, it comes from me, and it's an entry in our Young Hearts Run Free dialect dictionary, Somerset, born and bred. Robyn, it's over to
Yeah.
you.
I had to think about this one when you
Mhm.
sent the questions. And I actually messaged my family and I was like, what are the typical phrases? And all I had was my like sister and my like stepdad in my head. Like what stuff do they say? Like proper job. That's all, like everything's like, oh, like if it's good, it's like it's a proper job. Did well with that. So that's one. Gertlash.
What?
Gertlash.
Spell it.
Gurt. Gert. Lush.
Lash.
Lush.
Gert Lush. Robyn,
Yeah, it's
come on.
tasty. Skirt lash.
Oh,
It's
Gert
like
Lush.
very tasty.
Very
Gert-
tasty.
As in,
That is a
like,
new one.
as in, like,
Really?
if you're
Oh,
eating
my
a cake or
stepdad says
something,
that all
you
the
say it's
time. If he's had a
Gert
dinner
Lush.
which he's happy with, skirt lash.
Never heard it. Brilliant. This is what the dialect dictionary is all about. This is
There you
it.
go.
2 for the price of 1, Robyn. Thank
Gert
you
Lush.
very much. But I can see myself using that second one very soon.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like in the next
Brilliant.
10 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah, what should have your dinner?
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm getting excited.
And then,
Thank you.
Robyn, a final question, a musical one. I don't know what you can answer. I'm going to ask another 2 questions, possibly 3. Do you listen to music when you're out, or is it just nature, or do you mix it up? But also, what song or track choice would you like to add in for our listeners' benefit? What's Robyn Cassidy going to add into our playlist?
So I do listen to music when I'm on a run, and I listen to podcasts as well. So I listen to you guys, which is why I recognise your voices at the finish line.
Thank
Good.
you so much.
So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for entertaining my long runs. And song choice. So again, I've gone back to like home stuff. So so I said I grew up on a farm, and my stepdad's like the farm manager, but he would be getting up at like when we were growing up at like 5 in the morning to go milking, 4:30 to go milking, and he loves his music. So like for him, like the music went on at 5 o'clock and the volume went way up, so the house was like beating. So I've just got memories of when I was a kid of like it was stuff like Madness and like Fleetwood Mac and Paul Weller and The Jam and all of that sort of stuff at 5 in the morning, being like, oh, he's gone to work. So it had to be like one of those. So I've picked Paul Weller and Broken Stones because it reminds me of home.
What a tune.
Yeah, it's a home tune
What?
for me.
I love it. I love it when a
Yeah.
song transports you back. But when you mentioned the 4 artists, I'm thinking, pick any one of them. They're all belters. Every one of them. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's my stuff. If I feel homesick, all of that goes on.
The first Paul Weller track, I
Yeah,
think.
I think there's you stuck some jam on a couple of
Yeah.
things because that's one of John's
They were my
biggest
band. Yeah.
inspirations. Yeah,
There you
They
go.
were my
yeah.
band, yeah. And
But no Paul Weller, so yeah, it's now
There
added.
you go.
It's
Good.
Good.
officially on. It's on.
Good.
I also love the fact that your stepdad turns that volume up to 11 when it's only meant to go to 10. I love
Yeah.
that. Play
Yeah.
it loud. That's how music should be played.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Super loud.
Wow. We thought we'd be an hour. We're over that, Robyn.
Sorry.
We've
No
smashed
worries.
that. Thank you so much. As Stephen said, it was a pleasure to meet you in the Marquee in the Lakes. And I think we'd planted the seed then that this might happen. So thank you so much for that. We're calling this season the Danger Zone. And I think given the events that you've taken part in, you've been in the danger zone. You've survived the danger zone, but thank you very much for sharing your story. Please, I don't know how long this research thing's going to be after the Dragon's back, but please come back and tell us about the findings of it. I'm going to hand over to Stephen to say a final cheerio, but thank you so much. Thank you, Robyn.
Just on that, meeting you in the Marquee and stuff like that, and getting to speak to you, thank you for letting me share that little personal moment for you, and being so kind to give us a moment of your time again. It was really appreciated by me personally, because I'm like there going, oh no, these people are just coming on a line, and I'm, this isn't my day job. This is just a little sideline thing. Not even that. It's just a hobby. So I appreciated it. And also just that, like, what struck me most, Robyn, is that the amount of lessons that you took from coming first place in the Lakeland 100, and you're still coming away with a bag full of lessons for improvement, for and that desire's there. I can tell that, but like, there's more to come. It's like, I feel we've only scratched the surface a wee bit today on things, but I feel that you're only kind of starting to scratch the surface on what is potentially ahead of you as well. So all the best from us on that. And if you've ever got anything else that you want to speak to us about, please come back and tell us about it, whether it's research, whether it's winning your next race. It would be great to have you back on. We've really, really enjoyed that. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. It's been a lovely hour and a little bit. Enjoyed it.